Good afternoon, my name is Martin Bölter, and this is video number 5 of the series An American Experience. And this is the book I am referring to and why I make these videos, An American Experience by Martin Bolt, which is me. I just choose Martin Bolt because it's easier to remember than Martin Bölter. This chapter is called The Prisoner in America. It's on page number 35. It starts at page number 35. Compared to other chapters in the book, it's a rather lengthy chapter, and I can speak on it because I worked in the American prison system, or still work in the American prison system since 2008 with a little interruption, and I both worked in private prison and in state-owned prison. And one major difference between other countries, of course, who have prisons, particularly Germany / Europe and America, is that they have private prison. They have a big business going on here in America, which relate to private prison system. They make a contract. Some company makes a contract with the state and telling them, well, we can house your prisoner for blah 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 amount of money, which is 10, 15, whatever amount of dollars less than you are able to house that prisoner. So why don't you give me your prisoner and I take care of them under a specific contractual agreements, and we both make a living. I save the taxpayer some money and I make some buck in the meantime. And that's part of what is, I feel, wrong with the American prison system. Of course, in Germany, if you exclude Germany for a second and look at other European countries, of course there are dire conditions too. I don't claim to paint such a great picture about the prisoner or ex-inmate, inmate, whatever you want to call it, in other countries than America. It's bad pretty much all over the place. In, however, Germany, it's all state-owned, whereby in America it's a mixture. There's a lot of discussion going on whether or not this was a good idea, and etc., etc. But the main difference is what you should remember. One of the main differences is that private prison house prisoner for profit. Of course, they have a contract with the state to, if they build a prison at their cost, to house a certain amount of prisoner. They build a prison for 2,500 inmates and they sign a contract with the state. Well, I guarantee, the state says, I guarantee to house your prisoners or send you prisoners not less than 2,450, let's say, to make it operable for you and to run that prison, which is good and dandy. But the intent or the business purpose of a private prison is to make profit. Okay, that's just another business. And to make profit, they need prisoners. That's their business, to house prisoners, transport prisoners, feed prisoners, educate prisoners, provide medical care to prisoners, etc., etc. So their intent is to keep their prisons full, and not only keep their prisons full, but to, if possible, make other contracts to house more prisoners. That's how our business operates. Okay, and there is pluses and minuses on both sides, but you have to remember that the prisoner in private prison or the private prison company operates on profit. Okay, they are not interested in lessening the amount of prisoners because of their business purpose. And be that as it may, one major culprit I saw with the prison system / hiring system in the United States, that here everybody wants to know if you have a fellow conviction for anything. And whereby in Germany, in the hiring process, that's not an issue at all. So if you compare these two things, If you are coming out of prison and want to get hired, you have a profession, a legitimate profession, you learned your profession, you are good in that profession, which of course the employer doesn't know yet, but you have a certificate. Boom, I'm a plumber, okay, I'm a certified plumber. Let's say in Germany you're a certified plumber. You learn for 3 years, bang, you're a plumber, certificate. In America, that doesn't make much of a difference. You are an ex-felon, you are going down, at least in some companies. I wouldn't say all and stuff like that. Companies do hire ex-felons, there's no question about that. But other corporations just don't. As a general policy, they say, no matter what you do, we're not hiring ex-prisoners. And it doesn't matter what the prisoner did in most cases. The policy says no ex-prisoners, no ex-inmates. Anybody who served time for anything in the past, you're going down. And that's just the story. And I reject that for the simple reason, because it puts a blanket over all prisoners. I understand, and everybody should understand, that some people are best kept behind bars. That's just the simple truth of it. In America, they don't have mental institutions. They don't, not much anyway, for prisoners, where people with mental disorders of whatever kind and sort are not housed in mental institutions. They are housed in prison because they couldn't obey the law, so they needed to be put behind bars. That's a given. But that's also why there is a lot of people in prison who never will get out because they don't get the proper treatment, and they're in a vicious environment, and they cannot go nowhere as far as their treatment plan is concerned. Yes, they are being kept calm with whatever drugs might be out there, but they are, as far as their rehabilitation is concerned, non-existent. So besides the fact that all prisoners are, as far as the hiring process is concerned, are being treated equal, there is, of course, a big portion of inmates who should not leave prison. They have sworn their life, let's say, to a gang, and they cannot get out. So as far as the prison is concerned, this is their world, and they cannot get out. They have to do what their gang bosses say, no matter what. If they don't do it, whatever they were supposed to do to somebody, that will be done onto them. So they don't want to do that, so they don't want to have that happen, so they do what the gang orders them to do. That's one aspect. So, but there's also a humongous amount of inmates in there for check forgery, in there for drug possession of any sort. Back in the days, you had the 3-strike law. You get caught with, let's say, weed 3 times, and you get 20 years. Boom, mandatory minimum, as they used to call it. Okay, no matter what the judge wanted to do, if the judge seemed it a little harsh, that was the law. It changed a little bit in the meantime, but what I try to point out here is that some people go to prison, they just made a mistake. They just, as they say, effed up. That's all there is to it. But they are willing to go back out there after they serve their term, let's say 2 or 3 years, and do good again. But as far as the hiring process is concerned, that manic depressive who's totally jacked up, especially since he's in prison, or the gang members, or the murderers, the rapists, who just are not being treated or will not change, to put it simply, for whatever reason. Let's put it more factually. They will, for whatever reason, not change. They will not change. They cannot change, whatever might be the case. But a lot of people are longing for a second chance, and they just have a hard time in getting that outside in the American corporation system, because they have these policies. No ex-inmates shall be hired, no matter what. Sometimes some people on some application claim, oh yeah, it all depends on what crime did you commit. But if you, as a HR person, know your company's policies and look at the resumes and work histories of some people you consider for hiring, and you have 5 people to choose from, and 3 people have no prior convictions, and 2 people have, even though they are just as qualified as the other 3, they of course will choose the 3 people who had no prior convictions. That's just the fact of life in the American prison system. It's not a very lovely place. It's a fairly disrespectful place. And I say this with a little regret, because in many cases it doesn't have to be. Because, as we used to say in Germany, we have a German saying which roughly translates into how you shout into the forest, so the echo comes back, which basically is, I don't know if it communicates in any way, shape, or form, but it basically says how you approach somebody, how you decided to deal with a person, either choose to deal with a person respectfully or disrespectfully. This is then how the person will respond. And this is also part of what is wrong with the American prison system, that they are not being treated as the neighbors they are going to be when they get out. And that's just very regretful. I understand, again, you have to make this difference, or you have to somehow see my point that not all inmates you can treat equally, or it is fruitful to treat them equally, because a small percentage of the inmates will never change due to mental conditions, due to gang ties, due to, I don't know, 5 life sentences they have to do, or without parole, any such thing. Of course, you still have to deal with them. You still want to keep it on a somewhat respectful level. Excuse me. But I would say 75%, if they are being treated with respect, will respond positively, and they will see basically the end, the light at the end of the tunnel, because they understand that they do their time, and we are just there, which is the guard, or everybody who works in the prison system is just there to provide a environment which is humane, and from which they can then arise when they get discharged and go back to whatever life they had, or whatever life they plan to have. So that's one of the major differences. I would touch upon that. It's not the full story. There's probably another video to come on the American prison system. But as far as differences between Germany and America is concerned, and the prison systems, first of all, in America they have both. They have private and state-owned prison systems, whereby in Germany they only have state-owned prison system. There's no private prison nowhere. So, and the hiring process, compared again Germany and the United States, there is no hiring process I ever came across in Germany, and I applied for a lot of jobs too, which ask you for, or if you have any prior convictions. Here in America, it's a really integral part of the hiring process, generally speaking. Of course, some companies might not have that included, but as far as my experience goes, a lot of companies ask if you have any prior convictions. And lastly, the whole attitude towards inmates, the whole respect thing towards prisoners, is also a thing which struck me as strange. Basically, you can sometimes you are encouraged to talk to prisoners, inmates, any way you want to, and of course that breeds not really non-compliance, or people don't want to do what you tell them to do because they have no choice. they don't. If they don't do what you tell them to do, they get more time. Okay, so the tone in the prisons I work is more or less, you do what I tell you to do in the tone I tell you, and if you don't like it, do more time. That's kind of the approach in the current American prison system. Okay, it would benefit greatly, per my opinion, from a little more respect, from a little more humanity, from a little bit more professionalism. Uh, if you want to boil it down to one little word, professionalism, I think that's a good one, because the statutes, at least in the state of Oklahoma, says, treat prisoners or treat inmates as you would like to be treated, with the same respect, at least, as you would be treated by your fellow co-workers, or with the same respect as you treat your fellow co-workers. That's what it says. Not word by word, but you know where I'm coming from. And if anybody and everybody would do that, would more like have that type of approach, it would be easier to also weed out in the prison systems the inmates who are just not going to change and who are not going to make it on the outside, and between those who just come to prison, they did a mistake, horribly or not, and they want to do better and go back to where they come from. And I think the better we are in providing them a decent professional environment, the better the chances are that these people will go out there and become a integral part, a productive part of the society again. That's my honest opinion. And I think if anybody and everybody in the prison system would like take a little bit more of an approach in that direction, we would have a better prison system. So think about it. That was video number 5, the American prison system, from An American Experience by Martin Bolt. See you guys later.